The 11. Okay, so the resistance pattern of the 11 is codependent, over-analytical, and different learning pace. So 11 is all about structure. And ultimately, a person starting out with the 11 it's like this inner craving to for structure. So what will happen is that the 11, when the resistance pattern is running, 11 will cling to other people or other philosophies, religions, whichever things that don't really fully resonate with the person, but they're looking for some sort of structure to hold on to. It's almost like, imagine that if the resistance pattern was running, an analogy is like being out at sea in the ocean and there's nothing to grab a hold, and it's like you barely know how to swim and you're starting to sink, and it's like a little driftwood starts floating by. It's like, whoa, holding on to that and clinging to it. At least it's some type of structure to keep you afloat. That's the feeling of the 11. And so that's why it's really important to know that structure is a big, big, big part of your life. And to notice codependent patterns. Because the 11 in the resistance pattern will look for anything to grab a hold of, even if it's not best suited for it. And so the reason why this happens is because people with 11, the genius talent is actually to be independent and to become a master architect of building structure. And what does structure mean? Structure means the framework for life, the framework for business, the framework for a service. It's creating some type of structure that people can use and plug into and become better for. So since they're here to ultimately build structure for others, and maybe that could be through a book, a program, something that allows people to go through multiple steps. It's like, if a person is going to develop that skill, they need to know what it's like being on the opposite side of not having any structure. So it's a journey of not having any internal structure to the point of just clinging on to other things, to breaking away from those things and realizing, okay, that's not actually for me, and then building one's own structure. It's just like the pieces in here. It's like learning, what pieces of structure do you need in your life to operate most effectively, and putting that piece in there. Whether it's your morning routine, maybe it's your weekly routine, maybe it's not working on weekends, maybe it's certain pieces of structure with your friendships. So you're putting together all of these things in your life that you require to be at your best. And also, what are your philosophies? What is your belief system? These are all elements of structure. And as a person breaks away from clinging to other structures and builds their own, then they start creating this, or they start tapping into their genius talent, which is architecting structure. And as they start doing that for themselves, then naturally other people notice that, and they need help with that. So you become such a builder of structure in your own life that you're able to do that for others. And then that's where the master architect energies start coming through. And that goes to the next point, which is different learning pace. Depending on where you have it in your chart, it shows up different ways. But usually, especially if it's in the physical area, there can be a different learning pace. In school, usually a person feels like they're learning slower and they need more time. And what's happening is that the 11 learns to teach and learns to build. So oftentimes people will just learn to get by and get to the next point. The 11, subconsciously and naturally, is thinking many levels around the concept, so that one day they can build structure if they need to. It's a hidden talent. And so that's why it may need more time. A person need to read through something multiple times or have it repeated to them. It's because their brain is naturally putting in all these pieces of forming the framework of this concept. So an example of this is, let's take blue. So imagine like the normal learning pace is they're going to build this building. There's two building teams. And actually, I'll just illustrate this. I'll just speak to this so you can imagine it. So say there's two teams that are building a building. And after a month, there's one floor built on one building, and on the other building, there's nothing above the surface. So the first building is, let's just say a regular person. The second building is the 11th. So month 2 passes by, there's another floor of the building, and on building 1, we look at building 2, and there's still nothing above the surface. Month 3 goes by, the first building has a third floor, the 11 building, the second building, has nothing above the surface. Well, the 4th month, something magical happens. The 4th month, the first building adds another floor, so it's 4 floors in total. The second building, which represents the 11 energy, all of a sudden explodes and has got 4 floors. Month 5, the first building adds another layer, so it's 5 floors. And the second building that represents the 11 energy has 6 floors. And on and on and on. Pretty soon, the second building, which is representative of the 11 energy, is a skyscraper. And the first building is maxed out. It can't add any floors. And this is representative of what happens with 11 energy, is like that whole time where it looked like something wasn't happening above the surface, and something wasn't happening above the surface in this scenario. The 11 team, was building the foundation, the framework underneath to hold a skyscraper. And then once they were ready for that foundation, boom, everything above the surface happened and actually outgrew the other building. And that's an analogy for this 11 energy, because sometimes it might take a little bit longer, but once it clicks in, it's like, boom, such a level of thorough understanding that it can give structure for others. And ultimately, that's the master archetype energy. So with this, there's also a sensitivity. So it's always an important reflection with the 11s is to understand, is to explore, am I taking on anybody else's patterns? Anybody else's structure of living, anybody else's philosophy, anybody else's beliefs? Am I taking those on and in an unserving way for me? And then also, as a closing item, is to contemplate what is your, because this is about building a structure for truth. What is your contribution in the marketplace, in your life, that you're building a structure that's solid, that after you're gone, people can still utilize? Because this is really the energy of building something solid, stable, thorough, that can last on and on and on and long after you're gone, especially achieving your life's greatest work. Boom, this is very helpful. So think on that, as what is your contribution that you're building the foundation for, you're building the structure for, that can be sustainable long after you're gone.